Hello everyone. So in this video, I'd like to talk about how to deal with becoming a trustee of your family's investments. So if you've read my articles and watched my videos already, you'll have noticed that I work a lot with families passing wealth between generations. I don't just work with parents figuring out what they want to do with their money though, it's a joint effort between both generations. And the younger generation often need a bit of help with understanding what the wealth does, and how all of these advisors and terminology and tax wrappers, how it all comes together to work in practice. So on many occasions, whilst the younger generations know that the wealth exists, once you get into it, the complexity can be a little bit mind-boggling. So in one recent case, a client asked his adult daughter to become a trustee of the family discretionary trust, all well and good, and this was set up many years earlier. So this is a great case in point. Becoming a trustee comes with a lot of responsibility and liability. So understanding exactly what you're signing up for is vitally important. But it also exposes the next generation to the plethora of investment terms, quite often difficult decisions, and also paperwork, unfortunately, that you were probably sheltered from in the past. So whilst looking after family wealth can sometimes be quite complicated, the important point to bear in mind is that it doesn't have to be. So here's a few thoughts for you to consider if you've recently been asked to become more involved with the management of your family's wealth. So first up is, what is our long-term goal here? So in the case of trusts, it's quite common to have what we call an investment policy statement. But to be honest, even if a trust isn't involved, they're generally a good idea anyway, and they can be really useful for you to understand just at a high level what the investments are trying to do, and importantly, for you to influence that course of action now that you've got a sort of formal seat at the table. So next up is the jargon. So investments can be sometimes quite complicated. They can also be what we call wrapped, i.e. put in various different types of accounts. Now this is normally for tax or some other reason, which can just add another layer of complexity to it. But the important thing here is, don't be afraid to ask what the terms mean and why things are structured as they are. So a good group of advisors should be able to explain all of this to you in really plain English. Actually, when you get down to it, the concepts are pretty straightforward. Investment land just has a bit of a habit of complicating it. So I've done this before with clients, either over a lunch or nowadays by video call more often than not. So the next point is, are your values reflected in the investments? So whilst you might have an investment manager, so such as me, looking after your family's wealth, it's important that you understand what you're invested in, and crucially, that the investments align with your values. So for example, what I mean by that is, if you're very concerned about the environment, let's say, and you try and make sure your carbon footprint is as low as possible, does it matter that, say, a third of the portfolio is invested in heavy industry or oil and gas shares? Are there any sort of conflicts in the way that you want to run your life versus the way the portfolios are? Next up is your team, and this is a vital one. So some families have a lot of advisors and some families have very few. And you could have any number of tax and accountants, advisors, legal advisors, investment managers, and so on. And you really need to be happy with the advisors that you've got, and that they understand what the family is trying to achieve, that they're adding value and therefore they're worthwhile retaining, and they're helping you and your family to move forward with your wealth. And then one more point is on strategy. So in the case of an investment portfolio, don't be afraid to ask, but what's the high level strategy? What's the thought process behind the last few changes to a portfolio? Are you happy with that general direction? Does it make sense to you? You don't need to have a degree in investment management here, but just a high level sanity check is always a good thing. If you can't understand it or you don't believe in it, then it's time to dig deeper. A really important point is, don't be afraid to ask awkward questions. This is your chance, whilst you're brand new into it, to really get stuck in and understand everything. So I hope that these points can give you some food for thought as you move along your journey to become more involved. And whilst the responsibility might seem huge and potentially a bit daunting now, actually with the right support, being a trustee can be a great opportunity to make your mark on the family wealth and hopefully take it to the next level during your stint of looking after it. So that's all from me in this video. If you found this helpful, please do like, comment and share as always. Thank you.